Navy SEALs already possess some of the most advanced underwater infiltration and attack systems on the planet. Hidden inside silent mini-submarines, capable of navigating hostile coastlines in total darkness, they can strike from places few enemies would expect. And now, those systems are about to become even more advanced, paired with autonomous drones set to change the face of naval warfare forever. Among the most notable submersibles in America's arsenal is the shallow water combat submersible, known by some simply as the Mark 11. At 22 feet long, it's not a particularly large vessel, yet it can still carry a team of up to 6 SEALs across enemy lines. While much of the operational service of the Mark 11 remains classified, current reports suggest that the system can conduct missions lasting up to 12 hours and navigate around underwater hazards using its built-in navigation system. Unlike a regular submarine, the Mark 11 operates as a fully flooded wet submersible. Operators inside remain submerged in seawater throughout missions, for which they must wear diving suits and breathe through external oxygen systems. This configuration prevents the unit from going as deep as a more conventional submarine could. But in return, SEAL teams gain an incredibly stealthy platform that never has to surface during infiltration, and which allows for a much more rapid deployment. It's believed that at least 2 of these units have been completed and are actively serving in the Navy. Recently, analysts got a closer look at one of them as it was taken out of its hangar to conduct a series of tests in which the submersible was deployed alongside a pack of uncrewed underwater vehicles, or UUVs, one of the latest additions to the SEAL's arsenal. While the Navy didn't provide specific details on the type of underwater drones used during the recent demonstrations, these could serve as underwater scouts. By pairing them alongside the Mark 11, SEAL crews could potentially detect threats from farther away, get a better sense of the terrain ahead, and identify enemy movements much more easily. Navy Captain Mike Lynn from the Naval Special Warfare Program Office has explained that this new type of underwater team-up could help SEALs when carrying out infiltration missions. In an interview, he stated, quote, "A good example might be a harbor. Technology is in a state where passing through the mouth of a harbor, a choke point, is maybe much more well defended. Or it is a choke point, and they don't want to pass there with a big manned platform. So if you send a smaller, unmanned platform through, then that's pretty logical." The United States Air Force has adopted a similar philosophy. In recent years, it's invested in a series of experimental unmanned combat aerial vehicles, such as the Kratos XQ-58 Valkyrie, to serve as potential future wingmen. However, implementing an autonomous weapon like this in the skies is considered easier than doing so underwater. The main problem that systems like the Mark 11 will face when working with uncrewed underwater vehicles is how to communicate with one another. Data transfer through the air is much easier and faster than beneath the waves. This forces engineers to devise different methods of relaying information through sonar or light-based systems. As Captain Lynn bluntly put it, these underwater teams are still, quote, deaf, dumb, and blind. Still, the Navy appears to already be working on a solution to that problem. And if these systems can eventually be made to communicate and operate seamlessly together, it could make the Navy SEALs even more effective as a highly advanced special operations force. As Putin keeps deploying some of his most powerful missiles toward Ukraine, officials have begun to notice that some of them aren't detonating when they hit the ground. Recently, a team of engineers approached one of them and cracked it open to see what was inside. Now, experts are struggling to understand whether Russia is launching a psychological warfare campaign, or if the nation is simply testing its system ahead of one of its biggest strikes so far. The missiles are known as the Oreshnik, or hazel shrub in English, a name said to be inspired by their ability to camouflage themselves among forest trees during transport and deployment. They haven't been flying for very long. Their first known operational use was only back in 2024, when Russia unleashed them against Ukrainian targets in Dnipro, located about 240 miles away from the capital. Since then, it's believed to have been used only twice more in combat, once in January and once in May of this year. Reportedly, the missile can travel over 3,000 miles, putting most cities across Ukraine at risk. However, from the very start, one of the most concerning elements of the Oreshnik was its ability to release multiple warheads from a single missile, each capable of descending at hypersonic speeds. Some launches are said to exceed Mach 10, making them faster than any aircraft on the planet. Traditionally, this method of warhead deployment is more characteristic of nuclear weapons, which is why experts were immediately concerned that if Russia was not going for an atomic strike outright, it was at least trying to land one of the biggest hits on Ukraine since the beginning of the war. When these weapons were first deployed, some reports stated that the missiles unleashed a series of explosions that shook the region for hours. However, as analysts began studying the area using satellite imagery, it appeared that the damage had been minimal. Some local authorities even went as far as concluding that the missiles launched must have been carrying empty warheads. At the time, Russia stated that these attacks were meant to serve as a warning to Ukraine and its allies. But as Putin began sending these missiles flying toward his enemies once more, the mystery behind them only appeared to grow more confusing. For the recent May attacks, observers immediately noted that the incoming payloads didn't appear to carry explosives. Military analyst Vladimir Romanov commented on social media, quote, "Just insanely expensive hardware slammed into the ground, all for the sake of a pretty picture that nobody believes anymore, except pensioners." Craters and damaged buildings were scattered throughout the area after the attack. However, the overall impact of the missile was said to be more similar to that of an artillery shell than to that of a high-speed payload. Some components of the missile were even left in good enough condition for local authorities to pull them from the wreckage and analyze them up close. Investigators concluded that the missiles are not designed to inflict maximum destruction when deployed without explosive payloads, suggesting that Russia is likely not using them in hopes of carrying out crippling strikes just yet. Instead, it's possible that Putin may be conducting these launches as large-scale combat tests, allowing engineers to study how the missile behaves in real-world conditions, how accurately its warheads separate, and how effectively its hypersonic re-entry vehicles perform during descent. According to researchers, the missile's internal components also reveal that the system carries 6 warhead sections, each capable of dispersing into 6 smaller submunitions. That means a single Oreshnik can deliver 36 separate impacts, delivered either by conventional explosives or potentially even nuclear charges. It was also noted that during the most recent deployment of an Oreshnik missile, a second strike was registered, yet no detonations were reported in the area. That detail has only seemed to confirm that Russia is not simply using the Oreshnik as a missile, but as a live-fire test platform. One that may soon return to Ukraine, packing a far worse payload. While some believe the tide of the war in Ukraine is slowly shifting against Russia, Vladimir Putin is not going down without a fight. As of late May, cities continue to be pounded by bombs launched from aircraft over 100 miles from the front lines. So Ukraine is upgrading its aerial capabilities, deploying one of the most powerful missiles in the world to ensure no enemy can ever come close enough to launch another payload against its people. The news broke on May 28th, when during a security conference, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky stated not only that his nation is looking to acquire more than 150 Swedish JAS-39 Gripen fighter jets, including nearly 24 of its newest variants, but that his aerial forces would also be boosted by the powerful Meteor missile. The payload is widely considered one of the most powerful air-to-air missiles in the NATO arsenal. With a built-in radar homing system and mid-course correction capabilities, pilots don't even need to see their targets before firing. According to reports, as soon as the Meteor launches, it can detect the incoming threat on its own and chase it for up to 120 miles without losing track, even as its target keeps moving. This weapon could prove extremely valuable when going up against Russian glide bombs, or KABs, which, equipped with wings and guidance systems, can maintain steady flight toward their targets after being deployed by fighters and bombers positioned well behind Ukraine's air defenses. During the initial stages of the war, these bombs were only capable of covering about 31 miles. But with newer systems, Russia has extended that range dramatically with recent strikes reportedly reaching 60 to 80 miles, and Ukrainian intelligence warning that newer systems could reach as far as 125 miles. Late last year, the Ukrainian newspaper Strana reported that with these flying munitions, quote, the Russians have struck gold. They carry 2 or 3 times more explosive than Shahed drones, fly at higher speeds, maneuver less predictably thanks to the unified gliding and correction module, and are smaller than a missile, making them harder to shoot down. According to some reports, these types of bombs have become so critical to Russia's strategy that late last year, the nation was launching nearly 1,400 against Ukraine in a single month. This has put President Zelensky's forces in a delicate situation, one that the Meteor missile may be ready to reverse. With the Meteor's estimated range reaching roughly 120 miles, Russian aircraft launching long-range KABs may no longer be able to rely on distance alone to stay safe. Of course, Ukrainian pilots will still need to move fast enough to position themselves and open fire before their rivals can. Luckily for them, the Gripen jet they'll be using to carry out their attacks promises to give them exactly the edge they need to get the job done. Designed during the Cold War with the explicit purpose of defending Sweden against a potential invasion, the fighter can take off from rough, snow-covered, or improvised runways as short as 1,600 feet. For Ukrainian crews, this means they can stage a rapid defense as soon as a threat is detected, even when operating from narrow strips, city highways, or forest roads. Perhaps even more impressive, the Gripen only needs about 10 minutes to refuel, rearm, and launch again after finishing a mission. This will allow pilots to keep the jet in constant rotation, taking out incoming Russian payloads for as long as necessary. And while it may still take time before these jets arrive in large numbers in Ukraine, the implications for the war are already enormous. Because the moment Gripen aircraft, armed with Meteor missiles, begin patrolling Ukrainian skies, Russian pilots will be going up against a new hunter, locked firmly on their jets and coming after them at 4 times the speed of sound. Across the Middle East, legions of cheap kamikaze drones are coming down on American and Allied targets. To stop them, the Pentagon is racing to field a weapon capable of countering that threat, capable of deploying entire swarms of attackers into the skies, all commanded by a single soldier. In America's wars against the Taliban in Afghanistan and Al-Qaeda in Iraq, armed hunter drones like the MQ-9 Reaper and MQ-1 Predator have aided soldiers in carrying out reconnaissance missions and directing strikes. However, units like these have most commonly seen use for solo missions, and with production costs well into the millions, fewer than 1,000 of these systems are estimated to have been built. U.S. enemies are quickly outpacing these numbers. For comparison, it's been reported that so far in the war against Iran, the regime and its allies have launched more than 4,400 one-way attack drones. In Russia, the situation is even more worrisome, with Putin's forces said to have deployed more than 6,500 unmanned attackers in a single month against Ukraine. This rapid deployment is made possible by low assembly costs. According to analysts, Iran's Shahed 136 drones can cost as low as $20,000 to assemble, while a Russian Garan 2 is believed to cost around $48,000 for a standard version or $80,000 for a more specialized model. To counter this, America has begun deploying its own low-cost one-way attack drone, known as the Low-Cost Uncrewed Combat Attack System, or LUCAS. The weapon is still brand new, with its first suspected use occurring earlier this year, when OSINT researchers believe American forces deployed it alongside missile strikes during Operation Absolute Resolve, the military operation to capture President Nicolas Maduro. LUCAS's first officially confirmed combat use, however, came back in February, during the opening phase of Operation Epic Fury, when Admiral Brad Cooper of U.S. Central Command declared that the system had become indispensable for troops, and that soldiers had launched, quote, countless one-way attack drones. However, being able to assemble an arsenal of kamikaze attackers and get them into the air is only part of the equation. The next step is ensuring that once LUCAS is launched, the system can deliver an effective strike. To achieve that, defense officials have recruited Shield AI, one of America's leading aerospace and defense technology companies. As Shield AI president Brandon Singh has stated, quote, Lucas is about delivering affordable mass, but mass without coordination is limited in value. To overcome this limitation, Tsang announced that his company would pair Lucas with its hive mind system, an AI pilot that will allow entire swarms of drones to identify threats on their own, make decisions on the fly, and adjust their trajectories mid-flight to maximize their chances of delivering an effective strike. In practical terms, this doesn't mean that human soldiers will be replaced, but rather that far fewer of them will be needed to command large groups of drones, even when facing a rival swarm. According to reports, troops will still need to approve the final strike, but if any of their systems are taken down en route to their target, the remaining drones will be able to maneuver around the threat, helping soldiers shorten the kill chain and keep as much of their strike package intact as possible before impact. Despite its potential, there are still some doubts about hive mind. As of now, it remains unclear whether pairing hive mind with Lucas will increase the drone's costs too much and reduce the number of units America can deploy at one time. It also remains to be seen how effective this technology will be when enemy jamming attempts to disrupt communications and reduce situational awareness. Given that entire drone formations will be directed by a single operator, unexpected behavior by even a small number of drones could prove difficult to monitor and correct in real time. Nevertheless, many officials remain confident that hive mind is just what America needs to dominate in this new era of warfare.